Hi, my name is Chastity Gray, and I am a pre-nursing major at UNLV. This is my introductions video for women's studies. I spent a lot of time evaluating myself and self-reflecting, so this kind of project really interests me. The parts of my identity that I am most aware of are my gender, age, race, sexual orientation, and mental disabilities. I am Black and white, which is about as opposites can be. Growing up, this meant that there was a lot of clashing amongst both sides of my family. My white side, which is my mom's side, wasn't ever really accepting of my Black side, which is my dad's side, and vice versa. I grew up in a predominantly Black and brown city town, so being any kind of white wasn't really accepted, made fun of. It was kind of, the minority where I was from. I am a female. I have never really understood the difference between sex and gender. I believe I'm very open-minded and definitely open for conversation about it and learning. But I myself, it's not a topic that was ever really talked about in my home or in my town or amongst friends. So that would be something I'd have to get from an outside source, which I'm very willing to do. My sexual orientation is bisexual. I am bisexual. I knew this around middle school. I had my first girlfriend and all of that. Am I disabled? I wouldn't consider myself disabled, but I do struggle with some disabilities that get in the way of everyday life sometimes. I have been diagnosed with ADD, PTSD, and bipolar. These things come off very scary to some people and scary to people who don't struggle with it. It's something I've struggled with all my life, so it's kind of a norm now, something that I just adjust to when triggers or things like that get in the way. My first language is English. I have always spoken English. I went to school with a lot of Spanish-speaking kids, and I'm also in the process of trying to be fluent in Spanish. I think not only will it be a great pathway in life to be bilingual, there's a lot of, being in America, there's a lot of different cultures and races and people from all over the world. So being able to communicate with those people is a big interest of mine. Also the pathway that I'm taking in my career, which is healthcare. I think there should be a lot more multilingual nurses to be able to communicate with patients who are seeking help. I am not religious. I am spiritual. I was grown up in a Christian home where, you know, we didn't ever really go to church, but my family members worshipped Jesus and God. I do wear a cross, but I also wear a Buddha. These are more of a protection kind of thing than a religious thing. I do believe in a God, it's just not necessarily a religious God. It's more of a creator that I've made for myself. I attended public schools growing up. I did go to one military school, which is very different than any school that I had went to before then. I think the impact it had on my worldview was that public school mimics a lot the prison system, and private schools, military schools, mimic more of career pathways and college and things that successful people take stepping stones in life to reach. My mother went to grad school, so she has her master's in psychology. My father dropped out in high school, so that's the extent of their education. They always pushed education on my siblings and I, just because being where we were from, there's not a lot of pathways to get out, and it's not really common to get out of the situation that you're in. Big things that get you out are education, sports, and talents. So since we didn't really know our talents yet, they pushed education on us big to get out of our situation. I grew up in Oakland, California. It was urban-ish. It's kind of a long-lost town, I feel. It has the qualities that are amazing about it, or also qualities that are not so great about it. The energy there is humongous. It's very impactful. So when it's a negative energy, it's very negatively impactful, and when it's a positive energy, it's very positively impactful. This gave me a lot of my character, a lot of my shell. It gave me a lot of my walls. It built a lot of walls for me, but it also opened up avenues to learn about people who aren't from where I'm from. I think growing up in a small town, I was very small-minded, very like-minded. We all kind of operated the same, acted the same, been through the same things, grew up in the same light. So coming off to college and being out of the area that I grew up in has broadened my knowledge of everybody else in the social world. My family moved around a little bit. When I was 12, my mom had met her new partner, and we had moved to Colorado. He was an Army man, so we went from Colorado and Texas for a little bit, and then before moving back to California my senior year. There weren't a ton of gender roles in my family. I really only had one parent for most of my life, and she did most of everything that parents need to be done. So there wasn't necessarily gender roles in the home. I've never lived or studied abroad. It's my dream to. I would like to live in Spain for a year to not only become fluent in the language, but also to experience a different culture, live in a different culture, adapt to a different culture. We live in one world, in one eyeglass, and I think going out of our box makes it so we have not just more knowledge, but more experience in the world and in life. I ended up in Vegas for a few different reasons. I knew I wanted to get out of California. My first choice was to go as far as possible, which was the East Coast. So a lot of the schools that I applied to were on the East Coast. I only chose maybe 3 or 4 schools to apply on the West Coast. UNLV was one of the ones that accepted me first, and I had really fallen in love with the nursing program. Fears of being so far from home started to come about. So Vegas was like the perfect in between of being out of the state and being far enough to have, you know, my own life and build my own life, but also being close enough to go back home and visit if I needed to. We ate not the greatest growing up. I'd say I grew up in a very lower middle class status and with a lot of siblings as well. So our meals had to be cheap, which usually meant we were eating out or sharing meals from liquor stores or gas stations and things like that. A big activity, my favorite activity that I did every single day growing up was cheer. It was a big outlet for me, not only for my parents to get us out of the house and to get us into something that wasn't the streets or trouble or anything like that, but it was also for me something that I was able to get exercise out of, to let out emotions with, to build connections with, to have a team mentality with. It taught me a lot just outside of doing cheer. And